I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Capital Improvements Board of the City of Hammond for January 4th, 2021. I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Flores?
Here.
Krasinski?
Here.
Prieto?
Here.
Spitali?
Here.
Tyler? Venez?
Here.
Button.
Here. There are 6 present, 1 absent. So the next couple items on the agenda were a repeat from the last meeting. If there's no objection, we'd like to just carry forward the organization and our officers as were originally presented. Is there any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the consideration of the past meeting minutes.
Mr. President.
Commissioner Krasinski.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the December 7th, 2020 board meeting.
I second.
Meeting minutes approval has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Flores?
Yes.
Krasinski?
Yes.
Prieto?
Yes.
Spitali?
Yes.
Tyler? Venez?
Yes.
Button.
Yes. Meeting minutes approve. 6 present, 1 absent. Next item on the agenda is the report on the work study session. If there are no objections, the chair will make a brief statement on the discussion during the work study. We went through the items on the agenda just for clarification purposes. We talked about our meeting schedule. There is this consideration of the possibility of moving, shall I say, the meeting up 1 hour for a 4 p.m. work study session and a 5 p.m. regular meeting on the first and third Mondays of each month. We have yet to hear from one commissioner, councilman, and so we will reconsider that for future meetings. The next item we talked about in work study session was a little bit about project selection. Commissioner Prieto has kindly provided a list of potential project ideas for consideration by this board in his travels as part of his responsibilities. And lastly, I gave a brief discussion about cost savings of a value engineering exercise that we did for the Hessville Bridge immediately before the Christmas holiday. And after that, we adjourned. Any other comments about the work study session? Any more comments? Okay. Next item on the agenda, item 7, would be funding. I would ask our controller, Commissioner Flores, to make a brief statement.
Yes, Mr. President. So currently, we're wrapping up 2020 and just trying to identify any leftover funds that remain unallocated. The mayor has signified that he would like to see a portion of those funds go to the Capital Improvement Board. So we're hoping to get that number narrowed down within the next few coming weeks. I will say that our anticipated 2021 budget amount is roughly $11.5 million. That, of course, is with gaming revenues being at 100% of our typical average. And I just wanted to inform the board that our last gaming distribution was roughly 83% of our typical monthly average. So we are definitely trending in the right direction. Of course, barring any additional COVID issues in 2021, hopefully we'll get our full budgeted amount.
Thank you for the fine report. Any questions on funding? Any questions on funding? No questions. Thank you, Commissioner Flores. Next item on the agenda would be matters either from the mayor, from the council persons, or any of our department heads. I would recognize that Councilman Torres is in the audience. Is there any ideas or issues that from the council or any department heads that'd like to address this board?
I'd like to address, thank
Hi,
you.
Councilman Torres, please, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
And good evening to all the other board members. I know you're just getting started. On funding, I didn't hear 25 million?
Oh, no.
On the funding.
Our anticipated budget for, I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Please, go ahead.
Our anticipated budget for 2021 is a little over $11.5 million,
Okay,
and that's not including any rollover from 2020. And that is anticipating gaming revenues at 100% of our typical average.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I heard in the study section that you're got anticipated upcoming projects. Can council members that are not members of the board have access to that? The upcoming projects, did I hear Member Prieto say that he had a list?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't need it now. I just want to, because I have lists, and I believe other council members have lists. This will say duplication, so that if it's already on the list, I don't have to come in front of the board to ask for a certain project in my district.
Sir, I would, Councilman, I would suggest that you do that anyway, even if it is on a list. Let's say, for example, Councilman Pareto's list included Gosling Street, which we know is already under design in your district.
Right.
Your participation, your comments would weigh heavily on a decision on this board. I would not simply, if it would just because it was on his list, to avoid speaking on behalf of that project, sir.
Okay. I'll do that, but can we still get a list of what you already got on your list so that we know what you're planning to work on?
So, well, I guess the short answer is yes. You're welcome to have a copy of the list, right? But our lists, as you know, the need is much greater than the funds available.
Well, sure.
Right? And so we started with a list through our work study session of the projects that we already have kind of in the hopper.
Okay.
We have a number of projects that have already been started. I'm happy to provide you with that list. Commissioner Pareto has provided this board a list this evening of projects that just in his passing and in his experience through the water department.
Right.
I see no reason that we can't, we could share this list with you. By all means, we have not scored or brought these projects in a way to select which projects would happen. But we're happy to share you with whatever lists you'd like to see. So,
Okay, I appreciate that.
okay.
And I'm sure the other council members, there's a project going on in Indianapolis and Michigan Street. I don't know if it's part of you. It's done by the state, but are you getting any participation in that?
Sir, so that's a project. I'd be happy to drill down on all of that. So that project is a project that we've discussed here at our work study session meeting. Actually, I think it was our first or second meeting.
Okay.
We, the city of Hammond, applied to NERC for federal highway funding for an improvement of that intersection, Michigan and Indianapolis, to provide a new northbound right-hand turn lane to eastbound Michigan.
Okay.
So that project is in design right now.
Okay, the state or somebody sent me a copy of a preliminary what they got, and
Yep.
it's going to be close to that, right? The right hand, and okay. Well,
I'd be happy to talk to you about this in great detail if you'd like, sir.
yeah, because it is needed there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Very much appreciated. Any other matters from council or department heads? So in our packets, the board should have received correspondence from Councilman Emerson. I don't see him on the line on the Zoom call. Councilman Emerson, you will note in your meeting minutes from the last meeting that Councilman Emerson had actually discussed this particular project. I had asked him to just give it to us in writing, and so we had something in writing that we could move forward. It is a request for reconstruction of the 7,500 and 7,600 blocks of Van Buren. He has described a history related to the projects and the work that had yet been completed. He's asking for the board to consider these last remaining blocks of Van Buren and talks a little bit about funding, has provided a map. So unfortunately, Councilman Emerson isn't here for us to ask some questions. So I guess I would just say simply, is it possible that the councilman may be interested in participating financially with, in any way with funding this project? Does anybody else have any other comments or questions regarding the correspondence from
Mr. President?
Councilman Emerson? I'm sorry. Councilman, can we?
I forgot.
Councilman.
Thank you.
Can we finish this business and I'll come back to you?
Oh, I thought you were still on matters from.
I'll come back to you, sir. We'll finish this one letter and then come back to you.
Okay.
Is there any other comments about the Van Buren?
Other than Commissioner Flores and I talked very briefly that there was not a dollar amount that was listed as to what the next phase of this project would be. So if it would be so kind that the engineering department could give us a best guess for our next meeting, they could share that even in the work study session would be fine.
So rule of thumb, it's about $1 million a block.
Okay, so,
It's about $1 million a block for reconstruction. That's just a rule of thumb, right? We haven't done any hard numbers, so you're looking at 1.5 million-ish to do a project of this size.
and the project this size would also then be able to include, if we needed to, both the water department and the sanitary district, correct?
All in,
All in.
$1 million a block.
Okay,
Yep.
wonderful.
Just a good rule of thumb to use right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Really, ultimately, what we'd I need to check the status of design. I don't recall starting design on this particular project. It would have happened prior to my employment with the city. And I probably should have looked at that before this meeting. I didn't. And I would just say that if I can have an opportunity to see where we are, and if we can get our engineer that was working on the project prior to the earlier divisions to give us just kind of a back of the envelope number if the board chooses. Any other questions or comments on Councilman Emerson's correspondence? None? Councilman Torres, I'm sorry to cut you off earlier, please. You
Okay,
have
no
something
problem.
else,
I
sir?
thought you were done with that. Okay, I just forgot to ask, the process for submitting a project is just a letter to you, to the board?
So that's where we are today, sir, yes. We have a lot of work to do to try to get to that point of how, what sort of types of information, if there, you may end up seeing a form from us to help us determine how we're, what the information we need from you. But for the front end, we've asked if you have an idea, it would be best to have it in writing, right? Even if it's as simple as just a list of projects that you're interested in and what types of work you want to see, if it's a street lighting project, if it's a sidewalk, though I don't know if all of those are, I think most of those are within our responsibility, right, our remit here. So what's the project and what do you want done for now?
Okay, so, yeah, that's what I was wondering, if you had a form to fill out or
not yet.
We just submit a letter.
Still early, sir. Yep, it's still
Okay.
early. We're working through those details. I don't expect to have anything happen too soon. Just the letter correspondence to us, and we'll make sure that our recording clerk makes it part of the record.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other matters from council or department heads? Seeing none, moving on to item 9, old business. Is there any old business?
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
Councilman Emerson is going to try to get online right now and talk to you about this project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate. In the meantime, well, I'm going to assume there's no objections to coming back to the agenda item. I think there's a way to do that. Probably under public expression, we can circle back. Next item on the agenda is item number 10, which is new business. You have 2 items, action items in front of, or before you, that you should have received in your packet. Item A, funding allocation, Chicago Street Phase 2, construction engineering, CE, in the amount of $616,583.26. Is there a motion to approve?
Mr. President, I make a motion to approve.
Councilman Prieto, thank you.
Oh,
Councilwoman Venez is a second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the funding allocation for Chicago Street Phase 2. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President, would just like to include that this is going to be going to American Structure Point.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Any other discussion? If the council doesn't, or commission doesn't object, I'll add a few comments. So you'll note that the project is for CE. It's for project observation, full-time observation by the consultant, as stated by Commissioner Krasinski. It is 80-20 match, so it's 80% funded by federal highway funds and 20% local match. And this will be spread out over about 18 months, perhaps even longer. And it will be the city's responsibility to fully pay the consultant and then receive all the appropriate paperwork, including a canceled check, and then submit that for reimbursement at 80% to the state, which is a typical process that we've used on CE funded projects. Any other questions on this action? Other questions? It's been moved and seconded to approve the funding allocation for Chicago Street Phase 2, construction engineering in the amount of $616,583.26. May I have a roll call, please?
Flores,
Yes.
Krasinski,
Yes.
Prieto,
Yes.
Spitali,
Yes.
Tyler, Venez,
Yes.
Button.
Yes. The motion approves, 6 present, 1 absent. Next item on the agenda is item B, funding allocation for Chicago Street Phase 2 construction, local match in the amount of $905,115.60. Is there a motion to approve the funding allocation?
I make a motion.
Councilman Spitali made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Commissioner Krasinski seconded. On the funding allocation for the project, is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Commissioner Flores.
I just wanted to point out for the board that as part of the state requirements in 2018, half of our MVH distribution was required to be set into a sub-fund and used directly towards capital improvements, specifically construction for road. So this full cost of $905,115.60 will actually not be paid out of the gaming funds. It will actually be paid out of the MVH sub-funds.
100%?
100%.
Okay, awesome. Good to know that there's funds fully funded through that. Thank you. Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Commissioner Krasinski.
don't want to take your thunder, but I'll
Please do.
Oh, not necessarily, thank you. I want to let everyone know that this is a 20% match for the construction project, which is being run by the Indiana Department of Transportation.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
It is, sir. So as you said, we make a so-called down payment to the state so that they manage the project using 80% federal funds and our local match. Now, the local match is 20%. There is a component of this that's some utility costs. The contractor who has been awarded the work is Walsh and Kelly. And they'll do a fine job, I'm sure. Is there any discussion, any further discussion? Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded to approve the funding allocation for Chicago Street Phase 2 construction match, local match, in the amount of $905,115.60. May I have a roll call, please?
Flores,
Yes.
Krasinski,
Yes.
Prieto,
Yes.
Spitali,
Yes.
Vines. Vines,
I'm sorry, that mute button. Yes.
okay. Tyler, Button.
Yes, motion carries 6 present and 1 absent. So I would ask at this point if we could waive, or how do I do this? If we could suspend the rules of order to allow Councilman Emerson to make a comment and move back on the agenda to item number 8.
Mr. President, I so move that that happen.
Thank you, Councilman, or
Second.
Commissioner. Moved and seconded. Any objection? I don't, all in favor, say aye.
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 Approved. Councilman Emerson, we would love to hear from you on your correspondence that we received from you regarding the 7,500 and 7,600 blocks of Van Buren. Please.
Thank you, and I want to apologize to you, Mr. Button, and to members of the board. I got tied up at work, and but I tried to explain in the letter without rereading the whole thing. I tried on Van Buren and succeeded in 2012 to do 1 block, and then again in the next year to do the next block. And but the price I had to pay, or we had to pay, was to shortchange the rest of the district. You know, I think in those years we received 1.3 million, and it cost 800,000 to do a block of a complete rebuild. And when I met with engineering the first year on the 7,300 block, my predecessor had already paid, with the infrastructure money for the engineering study to be done on it. So I went ahead and did it. And then the same with the second year, although I paid for that, we paid for that out of the funds. So basically, I had to, with 1.3 million, 800,000 per block. When I went, to engineering about the 3 blocks originally, all the way to 8094, it was said that we just couldn't overlay it, that we had to do the complete rebuild. So with that said, I decided that I couldn't any longer shortchange the whole 4th district just to do the block. And so that's the crux of my letter and the map, but actually the map just shows what's left of Van Buren to do right there. So that's basically it. I mean, any other questions I can answer if you have any.
Thank you, Councilman Emerson. Any questions from the board? If I may, Councilman, do you feel, just throwing this out there, would you think that you might be able to either participate in some nominal way towards the funding of this project? Do you expect the Capital Improvements Board to, if this project were to be selected, to fully fund this, or could you help, or perhaps ask for support from perhaps the mayor in some way to help offset the cost of this project at all?
Yeah, I'd be willing to do any of the above there, but as I'm on the understanding that I will possibly receive $400,000 for the rest of the district. So depending on what that is, I would be willing to do that, because I feel, you know, that they've kind of been shortchanged. Whether I would have done the same thing again, I don't know, but the street could not just be, as I said, you know, could not just be overlaid. We had to go with the whole thing. So yeah, I would try based on what is allocated for the rest of the district.
Yeah, if you will, my point is not to say, you know, to shortchange the rest of the district. It's Councilman, we're really gripped with how to select projects and how to fund projects, and so, you know, the expectation is this board, you know, has to fully fund a lot of projects, and we have to figure out how we're going to be able to pay for those projects. And so if there is some sort of cost sharing that could be done in some way, and we would ask this on any I shouldn't say any person, but any potential funding source that has money available to do these projects, if there's some way to, you know, cost share in that. That's all. If Councilman President Werpel came to this board and had a similar request, we would ask the same thing. And so hopefully that's, you know, it's just trying to understand if, you know, if there's a commitment that could be done to help, you know, share the burden.
Mr. President?
Go ahead, Councilwoman Venez.
Yes, my question is, being that this obviously has been on the councilman's to-do list for quite some time, do you have any idea, based on past figures, what the total cost of this project would be?
So if you're asking the chair, which is fine, so my general rule of thumb is $1 million a block, and that would include engineering, both design and CE. So let's just say this is a block and a half. It could be a little bit longer, but if you say 1.5 blocks, it'd be on the rule of thumb about 1.5 million.
Okay. Councilman Emerson, have you discussed this project with regard to sewers and cost sharing on that? I mean, just to kind of give us an idea of, you know, what it is we're looking at here.
Well, as I said in my letter, the cost in 2012 was $800,000, but that was for one block. So Mr. Button is correct. Well, you know, the procedure was, I haven't, because in the past, you know, we submitted it and decided to use the infrastructure money for the block.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And I think, so if this project gets, you know, again, we're trying to get our arms around how to handle this. And what we would have done in the past is Councilman would come to engineering, and we would talk to the district, the engineer that was assigned to the district, and get them to give us a fairly detailed cost breakdown of what a project like this would cost. And at that point, we would be able to, not that we had done this in the past too terribly much, but we could divide that portion of the project that is dedicated to the sewer improvement and to the water improvement. And so it would probably be easier for us to, if we wanted to take a hard and serious look at this project, to talk to the engineering consultant to kind of give us a back of the envelope calculation about the real project costs, rather than just a rule of thumb, and the proportional share between the utilities. And then that could be divided into buckets. So there's a portion from water, a portion from sanitary, a portion from the civil city. And then if councilmen or the mayor could, maybe support the project too, it would just help the dollars go further. So we've received your letter, Councilman. We appreciate that. It's definitely going on our ever-growing list of projects.
Well, I want to thank the board and you, Mr. Button, and like I said, it's sort of it has been on my agenda. I agree with Ms. Inez. It has been on my agenda for quite a while, but I could no longer shortchange the district just to do the block or block and a half. So it remains, and people obviously, I'm sure you've heard that people are not happy because of the other 2 blocks north that were done, but I could no longer do it, and I really can't do it now with quite a bit of reduction. So that's my request.
Thank you, Councilman.
You're welcome.
Okay, motion to return to the regular order of business.
Yes, motion to adjourn, go to the regular order of business.
I heard a second, so it's been moved and seconded to return to the regular order of business. That was Councilwoman Inez. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is public expression. We do have Mr. Perry, Mr. Ron Perry in the audience. If you'd like to step up to the microphone, state your name and your address, and you're welcome to address this board of any projects that you may have in mind.
Name's Ron Perry, live in Hammond. I was wondering when they're gonna start on Alexander Street, or what they're gonna do before they start on Kennedy. The streets and curbs and whatever. Streets are real bad. I was wondering when they're gonna start. Spring's around the corner.
Yeah, there's no intent at this point in time to bid the project at this point. There's no bid schedule for that project.
So I mean, trying to say Kennedy comes first before Alexander?
I'm saying that this board will decide which project would come first.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. No one else has signed up for public expression. Don't see anyone else in the audience. I call for any more public expression. Being none, I call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Councilman,
Second.
Second.
it's been moved and seconded. You get that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.